Drum and bass is a type of electronic music which emerged in England in the early 1990s. The genre is characterized by fast breakbeats with heavy bass and sub-bass lines. History. See also, Old School Jungle. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, a growing nightclub and overnight outdoor event culture gave birth to a new electronic music style called rave music, which, much like hip-hop, combines sampled syncopated beats or breakbeats, other samples from a wide range of different musical genres and, occasionally, samples of music, dialogue and effects from films and television programs. But rave music tended to feature stronger bass sounds and a faster tempo beats per minute than that of early house music. This subgenre was known as hardcore rave, but from as early as 1991, some musical tracks made up of these high-tempo breakbeats, with heavy bass lines and samples of older Jamaican music, were referred to as jungle techno, a genre influenced by Jack Smooth and Basement Records, and later just jungle, which became recognized as a separate musical genre popular at raves and on pirate radio in Britain. It is important to note when discussing the history of drum and bass that prior to jungle, rave music was getting faster and more experimental. Professional DJ and producer CK states, "There was a progression as far as the speed of music is concerned. Anyone buying vinyl every week from 1989 to 1992 noticed this. By 1994 jungle had begun to gain mainstream popularity and fans of the music became a more recognizable part of youth subculture. The genre further developed, incorporating and fusing elements from a wide range of existing musical genres, including the ragamuffin sound, dancehall, MC chants, dub bass lines, and increasingly complex, heavily edited breakbeat percussion. Despite the affiliation with the ecstasy-fueled rave scene, jungle also inherited some associations with violence and criminal activity, both from the gang culture that had affected the UK's hip-hop scene and as a consequence of jungle's often aggressive or menacing sound and themes of violence. However, this developed in tandem with the often positive reputation of the music as part of the wider rave scene and dancehall-based Jamaican music culture prevalent in London. By 1995, whether as a reaction to, or independently of this cultural schism, some jungle producers began to move away from the ragga-influenced style and create what would become collectively labeled, for convenience, as drum and bass. As the genre became generally more polished and sophisticated technically, it began to expand its reach from pirate radio to commercial stations and gain widespread acceptance. It also began to split into recognizable subgenres such as jump-up and hardstep. As a lighter and often jazz-influenced style of drum and bass gained mainstream appeal, additional subgenres emerged including techstep, which drew greater influence from techno music and the soundscapes of science fiction and anime films. The popularity of drum and bass at its commercial peak ran parallel to several other homegrown dance styles in the UK, including big beat and hard house. But towards the turn of the millennium its popularity was deemed to have dwindled as the UK garage style known as speed garage yielded several hit singles. Speed garage shared high tempos and heavy bass lines with drum and bass, but otherwise followed the established conventions of house music, with this and its freshness giving it an advantage commercially. London DJ producer CK says, "It is often forgotten by my students that a type of music called garage house existed in the late 1980s alongside hip house, acid house and other forms of house music." He continues, "This new garage of the mid-90s was not a form of house or a progression of garage house. The beats and tempo that define house are entirely different." This did cause further confusion in the presence of new house music of the mid-1990s being played alongside what was now being called garage. Despite this, the emergence of further subgenres and related styles such as liquid funk brought a wave of new artists incorporating new ideas and techniques, supporting continual evolution of the genre. To this day drum and bass makes frequent appearances in mainstream media and popular culture including in television, as well as being a major reference point for subsequent genres such as grime and dubstep and successful artists including Chase and Status and Australia's Pendulum. Musical features: drum and bass incorporates a number of scenes and styles, from the highly electronic, industrial sounds of techstep through to the use of conventional, acoustic instrumentation that characterize the more jazz-influenced end of the spectrum. The sounds of drum and bass are extremely varied due to the range of influences behind the music. Drum and bass could at one time be defined as a strictly electronic musical genre, with the only live element being the DJ's selection and mixing of records during a set. Live drum and bass using electric, electronic and acoustic instruments played by musicians on stage emerged over the ensuing years of the genre's development. Influences: a very obvious and strong influence on jungle and drum and bass, thanks to the British African Caribbean sound system scene, is the original Jamaican dub and reggae sound, with pioneers like King Tubby, Peter Tosh, Sly and Robbie, Bill Lawswell, Lee Perry, Mad Professor, Roots Radix, Bob Marley and Buju Banton heavily influencing the music. This influence has lessened with time but is still evident with many tracks containing ragga vocals. As a musical style built around funk or syncopated rock and roll breaks, James Brown, Al Green, Marvin Gaye, Ella Fitzgerald, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Billie Holiday, Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, The Supremes, The Commodores, Jerry Lee Lewis and even Michael Jackson, are funky influences on the music. Jazz pioneer Miles Davis has been named as a possible influence. Blues artists like Lead Belly, Robert Johnson, Charlie Patton, Muddy Waters and B.B. King have also been cited by producers as inspirations. Even modern avant-garde composers such as Henryk Górecki have received mention. One of the most influential tracks in drum and bass history was Amen Brother by the Winstons, which contains a drum solo that has since become known as the Amen break, which after being extensively used in early hip-hop music, went on to become the basis for the rhythms used in drum and bass. Kevin Saunderson released a series of bass-heavy, minimal techno cuts as Reese the Reese Project in the late 80s, which were hugely influential in drum and bass terms. One of his more famous bass lines was indeed sampled on Renegade's Terrorist and countless others since, being known simply as the Reese bass line. He followed these up with equally influential tracks in the UK hardcore style as Tronic House in 1991 and Euro 1992. Another Detroit artist who was important for the scene is Carl Craig. The sampled-up jazz break on Carl Craig's Bug and the Bass Bin was also influential on the newly emerging sound. DJs at the Rage Club used to play it pitched up as far as their Technics record decks would go. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, the tradition of breakbeat use in hip-hop production had influenced the sound of breakbeat hardcore, which in turn led to the emergence of jungle, drum and bass, and other genres that shared the same use of broken beats. Drum and bass shares many musical characteristics with hip-hop, though it is nowadays mostly stripped of lyrics. Grandmaster Flash, Roger Troutman, Africa Bambaataa, Run DMC, Mac Dre, Public Enemy, Schoolie D, NWA, Tupac Shakur, Kid Frost, Wu-Tang Clan, Dr. Dre, Mos Def, Beastie Boys and The Pharcyde are very often directly sampled, regardless of their general influence. Clearly drum and bass has been influenced by other music genres, though influences from sources external to the electronic dance music scene perhaps lessened following the shifts from jungle to drum and bass, and through to so-called intelligent drum and bass, and techstep. It still remains a fusion music style. Some tracks are illegally remixed and released on white label, often to acclaim. For example, DJ Zink's remix of the Fugees' Ready or Not, also known as Fugees or Not, was eventually released with the Fugees' permission after talk of legal action, though ironically the Fugees' version infringed Enya's copyright to an earlier song. White labels along with dub plates play an important part in drum and bass musical culture. Drum and bass line elements: the genre places great importance on the bass line, a deep sub-bass musical pattern which can be felt physically through powerful sound systems due to the low range frequencies favored. There has been considerable exploration of different timbres in the bass line region, particularly within techstep. The bass lines most notably originate from sampled sources or synthesizers. Bass lines performed with a bass instrument, whether it is electric, acoustic or a double bass, are less common, but examples can be found in the work of bands such as Shapeshifter, Squarepusher, Ronnie Size and STS-9. Of equal importance is the TR-808 kick drum, an artificially pitched and or elongated bass drum sound sampled from Roland's classic TR-808 drum machine, and a sound which has been subject to an enormous amount of experimentation over the years. The complex syncopation of the drum track's breakbeat is another facet of production on which producers can spend a very large amount of time. The amen break is generally acknowledged to have been the most used break in drum and bass. The amen break was synonymous with early drum and bass productions, but other samples have had a significant impact, including the Apache, Funky Drummer, Soul Pride, Scorpio, and Think breaks. Many drum and bass tracks have featured more than one sampled breakbeat in them, and a technique of switching between two breaks after each bar developed. Examples of this can be heard on mid-90s releases such as J Magic's Your Sound. A more recent commonly used break is the ʻdrʌm, which combines the amen break, a James Brown funk breakbeat and an Alex Reese drum and bass breakbeat. The relatively fast drum beat forms a canvas on which a producer can create tracks to appeal to almost any taste, and often will form only a background to the other elements of the music. Syncopated breakbeats remain the most distinctive element, as without these a high-tempo 4/4 dance track could be classified as techno or gabba. Tempo, drum and bass is usually between 160–180 BPM, in contrast to other breakbeat-based dance styles such as New School breaks, which maintain a slower pace at around 130–140 BPM. A general upward trend in tempo has been observed during the evolution of drum and bass. The earliest forms of drum and bass clocked in at around 130 BPM in 1990–1991. Speeding up to around 155–165 BPM by 1993. Since around 1996, drum and bass tempos have predominantly stayed in the 170–180 range. Recently some producers have started to once again produce tracks with slower tempos, but the mid-170 tempo is still the hallmark of the drum and bass sound. A track combining the same elements as a drum and bass track, but with a slower tempo, might not be drum and bass but a drum and bass influenced breakbeat track. Context: drum and bass exhibits a full frequency response which can only be appreciated on sound systems which can handle very low frequencies. As befits its name, the bass element of the music is particularly pronounced, with the comparatively sparse arrangements of drum and bass tracks allowing room for bass lines that are deeper than most other forms of dance music. Consequently, drum and bass parties are often advertised as featuring uncommonly loud and bass-heavy sound systems. There are however many albums specifically designed for personal listening. The mixed CD is a particularly popular form of release, with a big-name DJ producer mixing live, or on a computer, a variety of tracks for personal listening. Additionally, there are many albums containing unmixed tracks, suited for home or car listening. Many mixing points begin or end with the drop. The drop is the point in a track where a switch of rhythm or bass line occurs and usually follows a recognizable build section and breakdown. Sometimes the drop is used to switch between tracks, layering components of different tracks, though as the two records may be simply ambient breakdowns at this point, though some DJs prefer to combine breakbeats, a more difficult exercise. Some drops are so popular that the DJ will rewind, or reload, or lift up by spinning the record back and restarting it at the build. The drop is often a key point from the point of view of the dance floor, since the drum breaks often fade out to leave an ambient intro playing. When the beats recommence they are often more complex and accompanied by a heavier bass line, encouraging the crowd to dance. Although it declines, DJs are often accompanied by one or more MCs, drawing on the genre's roots in hip-hop and reggae ragga. MCs do not generally receive the same level of recognition as producer DJs, and some events are specifically marketed as being MC-free. There are relatively few well-known drum and bass MCs: Stevie Hyper D, MC GQ, Dynamite MC, MC Fats, MC Comrade, Shabba D, Skibba D, Bassman, MC Stamina, MC Fun, Evil B, Trigger, Harry Shotter and MC Infinity as examples. Live drum and bass. Many musicians have adapted drum and bass to live performances, which feature instruments such as drums or triggered drum, synthesizers, turntables, bass and guitars. Samplers have also been used live by assigning samples to a specific drum pad or key on drum pads or synthesizers. MCs are frequently featured in live performances. Artists who have been known to perform live include Rudimental, DJ Fresh, Modstep, Roni Size, Salmonella Dub, Shapeshifter, Pendulum, Laugh Phase, Netski, Chase and Status and London Electricity. Music cartography, subgenres. Smaller scenes within the drum and bass community have developed and the scene as a whole has become much more fractured into specific subgenres, including, drum step is a combination of drum and bass and dubstep where the beat structure is a euro or half to mere euro, the remaining elements still adhere to the usual tempo and melody pattern style from drum and bass. Since the early 2010s, drum step has become one of the most popular subgenres of drum and bass, with some songs receiving over 10 million views on YouTube. Breakcore is a style of electronic dance music largely influenced by hardcore, jungle, digital hardcore and industrial music that is characterized by its use of heavy kick drums, breaks and a wide palette of sampling sources, played at high tempos. Ragga drum and bass was inspired by the original ragga jungle style, with influences from reggae and dancehall music. Notable artists include Shy FX and T-Power, Congo Natty, Potential Bad Boy, Marcus Visionary, Serial Killers, Benny Page and vocalists such as David Boomer, Top Cat, Tenafly and General Levy. Hardstep is a harder style which uses gritty bass lines and heavy yet simple electronic melodies. Notable artists include Dillinger, DJ Crust, Mumpy Swift, Diesel Boy, Current Value, Machine Code etc. Darkstep is characterized by fast drums and a general dark mood, drawing influences from dark ambient, industrial and hardcore music. Prominent artists include Technical Itch, Dylan, Cryptic Minds and Leon Switch, Beaky, Resident Evil, Infiltrator, SPL, Counter-Strike, Evil Intent, The Panacea, Limewax, and Current Value. Techstep is characterized by sci-fi soundscapes and samples from science fiction culture. Pioneered by artists such as Bad Company UK, Ed Rush, Optical, Trace, Fierce and Nico, Conflict, Dom and Roland, Dillinger, Ram Trilogy, Moving Fusion, Decoder and Substance, Digital and Spirit, Future Cut, Dylan, Loxy and Inc., Total Science, DK, Stacker and Skinnet and Keaton with Usual Suspects or Universal Project, Clute, Concord Dawn, and the label Moving Shadow. Neurofunk or Neuro is the progression from techstep incorporating more elements from jazz and funk. Prominent artists include Ed Rush and Optical, Matrix, Bad Company UK, Cause for Concern, TB, Future Prophecies, Black Sun Empire, Calyx, Hive, Gridlock, Noisia, Face and Misanthrope, Silent Witness and Break, State of Mind, The Upbeats, Chase and Status, Spur, Pseudream, Catacomb, Regular. Jump Up, appeared in the mid-1990s, employs heavy and energetic drum and bass, characterized by robotic and heavy bass sounds. Notable artists include DJ Hazard, Generation Dub, Baron, Cabby, CLIPZ, Nightwalker, Khalid, Taxman, Jaden, Sub-Zero, Original Sin, Annex, Konerchi, Decimal Bass, Tyke, DJ Zen, Magistrate, Twisted Individual, Distorted Minds, TC, Heist, DJ Pleasure, DJ Hype and his label Pliers Recordings. Ambient Drum and Bass, Atmospheric Drum and Bass, Atmospheric Drum and Bass, Atmospheric Drum and Bass, Intelligent Drum and Bass, Jazzy Drum and Bass, Intelligent Drum and Bass or Intelligent Jungle is a smoother style, influenced by ambient music, chill-out, jazz and soul music. It was pioneered by such artists as Timecode, Omni Trio, Foul Play, Hyperon Experience, DJ Pulse, Higher Sense, Deep Blue, Folk, Jack Smooth, Blame, LTJ Bickham and his label Good Looking Records, and the label Moving Shadow. Jazz step or jazzy jungle demonstrates heavy influence by jazz. It uses typical jazz scales, rhythms and instrumentation. Notable artists include Roni Size and Represent, Goldie, Morgan Sullivan, Makoto, Pache, Alex Reese, and DJ Dextrous. Liquid funk draws heavily on harmonic and melodic grooves, and samples from funk, jazz, soul, R&B, disco, house and breakbeat, while intelligent drum and bass or atmospheric drum and bass creates a calmer yet more synthetic sound. It was pioneered by Calibre, Zero Tolerance and Beaker 2, London Electricity, High Contrast, Logistics, New Tone, Danny Bird, Scientific, Netsky, Lensman, Technomatic, Hot Scenes on Bass, Paul T. and Edward Oberon, Hybrid Minds and labels such as Hospital Records, Focus Records and Liquid V. Drum Funk or Choppage is atmospheric drum and bass with a heavy emphasis on complex drum patterns, often with sections of the track where the drums are unaccompanied. Prominent artists include Breakage, Sheba, Paradox, and Equinox, Nebula, and the Scientific Wax label. Funk step incorporates elements from funky house, electro house and dubstep into drum and bass. Funk step songs start with calm intros, which can sometimes be mixed up with drum step because of its dubstep and drum and bass-like drums. But after starting with a typical funk step riff and changing the bass drum to a consistent 4x4 cadence, it is easy to recognize the bridge to more complex house music, which is typical for a funk step song. A song can contain these bridges and changes repeatedly, which mostly indicate the drops and highlights. Sambas incorporates elements from samba, bossa nova and other Latin music styles. Pioneered by artists such as DJ Markey, XRS, DJ Patlife and Brian G's label V Recordings. Drill and bass incorporates double-time drum and bass with undanceable rhythms, low-brow humor, and ambient vibes. The subgenre was developed by Squarepusher and Aphex Twin, whose rapid and irregularly syncopated bass lines discouraged dancing. Regional scenes, despite its roots in the UK, which can still be treated as the home of drum and bass, the style has firmly established itself around the world. There are strong scenes in other English-speaking countries including Australia, Canada, South Africa, the United States and New Zealand. It is popular throughout continental Europe, and in South America. São Paulo is sometimes called the drum and bass Ibiza. Brazilian drum and bass is sometimes referred to as sambas, with its specific style and sound. In Venezuela and Mexico, artists have created their own forms of drum and bass combining it with experimental musical forms. In Colombia there is a lot of underground scene. The Reset label and Bogotá Project are two collectives that focus all their energy in DNB events in the city. Besides there is a big event realized twice a year called Radical Styles, that reunite all the local talent and international big names. Genres influenced by drum and bass, born around the same time as jungle, breakcore and digital hardcore share many of the elements of drum and bass, and to the uninitiated, tracks from the extreme end of drum and bass may sound identical to breakcore thanks to speed, complexity, impact and maximum sonic density combined with musical experimentation. German drum and bass DJ The Panacea is also one of the leading digital hardcore artists. Raggacore resembles a faster version of the ragga-influenced jungle music of the 1990s, similar to breakcore but with more friendly dancehall beats. Darkcore, a direct influence on drum and bass, was combined with influences of drum and bass itself, leading to the creation of darkstep. There is considerable crossover from the extreme edges of drum and bass, breakcore, darkcore, digital hardcore and raggacore with fluid boundaries. The genre has influenced many other genres like hip-hop, big beat, dubstep, house music, trip-hop, ambient music, techno, rock and pop, with artists such as Bill Lawswell, Incubus, Pitch Shifter, Linkin Park, The Roots, Talvan Singh, Medieval Pundits, Missy Elliott, The Freestylers, 9 Inch Nails and David Bowie and others quoting drum and bass and using drum and bass techniques and elements. The USA has adopted the sound with a genre called Guitartech which have synth and bass lines similar to drum and bass. Record labels. Drum and bass as a whole is dominated by a small group of hardcore record labels. These are run mainly by some of the scene's most prominent Euro producers, such as London Electricity's Hospital Records, Andy C's Ram, Goldie's Metalheads, Basement Records, Chris Renegade's Lifted Music, DJ Friction's Shogun Audio, DJ Fresh's Breakbeat Cause and DJ Hype, Pascal and formerly DJ Zing's True Pliers. The major international music labels such as Sony Music and Universal have shown very little interest in the drum and bass scene, though there has been a few signings, most recently Pendulum's and Silico LP to Warner. Ronnie Size's Full Cycle Records played a big, if not the biggest, part in the creation of drum and bass with their dark, bassline sounds. V Recordings also played a large part of the development of drum and bass. Ronnie Size, Crust and DJ Dye produced some of the first tracks to be considered mainstream drum and bass tracks. In recent times, Andy C's Ädrʌm Records have been pushing the boundaries of drum and bass further into the mainstream, with artists such as Chase and Status and Sub Focus releasing many tracks on Ädrʌm. Chase and Status as well as Pendulum are already hovering in the mainstream, and singles like DJ Marquee and XRS LK have in the past topped the UK charts. Bringing back UK jungle music legends from LTJ Bickham's label, good-looking artists Baby Kane, breakbeat hardcore heavyweight Nebula 2 and original journalist Gapper G, who had a big hit with Information Centre after remixes from DJ Zinc and Ray Keith. Other Bristol labels such as Cafe Bass have also helped to push through a sound categorised as bass music with the help of influential artists such as Lone Ranger. Formats and distribution. Purchasing. Originally drum and bass was mostly sold in 12-inch vinyl single format. With the emergence of drum and bass into mainstream music markets, more albums, compilations and DJ mixes started to be sold on CDs. As digital music became more popular, websites focused on electronic music, such as Beatport, began to sell drum and bass in digital format. Distributors. The bulk of drum and bass vinyl records and CDs are distributed globally and regionally by a relatively small number of companies such as SRD, Saint Holdings, and New Urban. As of September 11, 2012, New Urban Music Limited ceased trading under SM10 and were instructed to assist in convening statutory meetings of members and creditors to appoint a liquidator. This left many labels short on sales, as New Urban were one of the main distributors for the vinyl markets in the drum and bass scene. Media presence. Today, drum and bass is widely promoted throughout the world using different methods such as video sharing services, blogs, radio and television, the latter being the most uncommon method. More recently, music networking websites such as SoundCloud and Mixcloud have become powerful tools for artist recognition, providing a vast platform that enables quick responses to new tracks. Record labels have adopted the use of podcasts. Prior to the rise of the Internet, drum and bass was commonly broadcast over pirate radio. The two highest-profile radio stations playing drum and bass shows are the Drum and Bass Show with Friction on BBC Radio 1, simulcast in the US and Canada on Sirius XM, and DJ Hype on Kiss 100 in London. The BBC's urban station BBC Radio 1 Extra also features the genre heavily, with DJ Bailey and Chrissy Chris as its advocates. The network also organises a week-long tour of the UK each year called Extra Bus. London pirate radio stations have been instrumental in the development of drum and bass, with stations such as Cool FM, Don FM, Rude FM, Origin FM, Wax FM and Eruption among the most influential. Internet radio stations, acting in same light as pirate stations, have also been an instrumental part in promoting drum and bass music. The majority of them funded by listener and artist donations. Sites such as journalist.com was very popular in the early years of the 2000s. Other popular forums are Bass Drive, Jungle Train, DNB Radio, and everydayjournalist.com. Digitally imported, known as DFM, has 3 channels. Other well-known sites include renegaderadio.co, Drum and Bass Lounge, Bassport FM. Runningtings.com was among the first of the stations and is still operating. Satellite radio, in North America, XM Satellite, 89.5 CIUT with Marcus Visionary, DJ Prime and Mr. Brown is North America's longest-running jungle radio show. Album 88.5 and C89.5 FM have shows showcasing drum and bass. Seattle also has a long-standing electronica show known as Expansions on 90.3 Fathoms KEXP. The rotating DJs include Kid Hops, whose shows are made up mostly of drum and bass. In Columbus, Ohio, WCBE 90.5 has a 2-hour electronic-only showcase, All Mixed Up, Saturday nights at 10 p.m. At the same time, WUFM 88.7 plays its electronic playground. Also, Tulsa, Oklahoma's rock station, 104.5 The Edge, has a 2-hour show starting at 10 p.m. Saturday nights called Edge Essential mixed by DJ Demko, showcasing electronic and drum and bass style. While the aforementioned shows in Ohio rarely play drum and bass, the latter plays the genre with some frequency. In Tucson, Arizona, 91.3 Fathoms KXCI has a 2-hour electronic show known as Digital Empire. Friday nights at 10 p.m. resident DJ Trinidad showcases various styles of electronica, with the main focus being drum and bass, jungle and dubstep. Magazines. The best-known drum and bass publication was KMAG magazine before it went completely online in August 2009. Other publications include the longest-running drum and bass magazine worldwide, ATM Magazine, and Austrian-based Resident. London-based DJ Magazine has also been running a widely respected drum and bass reviews page since 1993, written by Alex Constantinides, which many followers refer to when seeking out new releases to investigate. Literature, All Crews, Journeys Through Jungle/Drum and Bass Culture by Brian Bell. Fortune, Non-fiction, Roots and Future in Energy Flash by Simon Reynolds. Picador, Non-fiction, Generation Ecstasy, Into the World of Techno and Rave Culture by Simon Reynolds. Routledge, Non-fiction, Rumble in the Jungle, The Invisible History of Drum and Bass by Stephen Quinn. In Transformations, No. 3, Non-fiction PDF file, State of Bass, Jungle The Story So Far by Martin James. Boxtree, Non-fiction, The Rough Guide to Drum and Bass by Peter Shapiro and Alexis Marion. Non-fiction, King Rat by China Mia. Copyrightville, fiction. Online, drum and bass has a very strong, important and vocal online presence with many dedicated portals, forums, communities and internet radio stations. The internet has to much degree superseded the role of pirate radio stations in spreading and popularizing the genre, as the stations have switched to newer genres. Internet sites are a source of the latest mixes and tracks by unsigned producers. The dominant and most popular websites are Dogs on Acid and Drum and Bass Arena. YouTube has played a major role for drum and bass on the Internet with the appearance of Pandartmb in 2006 and ENBR in 2007, these were later followed by the hugely successful UKF, which to date has reached over 1 billion views. Mainstream acceptance. Certain drum and bass releases have found mainstream popularity in their own right, almost always material prominently featuring vocals. Perhaps the earliest example was Goldie's album Timeless from 1995, along with Represent's Mercury Music Prize-winning New Forms from 1997, For Heroes Mercury nominated 2 Pages from 1998, and Pendulum's Hold Your Color in 2005. Video games such as Hi-Rez Studios' Tribes, Ascend and Rockstar Games' Grand Theft Auto series have contained drum and bass tracks. DJ Timecode's MSX98 radio station in Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto, Liberty City Stories played drum and bass exclusively. The genre has some popularity in soundtracks. For instance, Hive's ultrasonic sound was used in The Matrix's soundtrack, and the EZ Rollers song Walk This Land appeared in the film Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. Ganja Cross Super Sharpshooter is heard in the 2006 film Johnny Was. The Channel 4 show Skins uses the genre in some episodes, notably in the first series' 3rd episode, Jal, where Shy FX and UK Apache's original Nutter was played in Phasers Club. Drum and bass often makes an appearance as background music, especially in Top Gear and television commercials thanks to its aggressive and energetic beats. Cartoon Network's Toonami programming block employs it for television spots and show intros, like the 1997 relaunch of SCIFI channel Sigi Music by the Jungle Sky label. See also, Dogs on Acid, Drum and Bass Arena, List of electronic music genres, List of jungle and drum and bass artists, List of jungle and drum and bass MCs, UKF Music, References. External links. 1. The biggest collection of drum and bass lyrics, History of Drum and Bass, a BBC timeline on the history of drum and bass with track listings, quotes and samples. D-Inference, Drum and Bass Social Network, DNB Squad, Russian Drum and Bass Community, Drum and Bass India Cent, Indian Drum and Bass Community.